here with the hour's news from Tigray TV. I'm Mary Mano, will be reading the news for you. Stay tuned. Proceeding to the details. Tigray's armed forces continue to make gains, capturing the town of Desse today, October 30, 2021. Tigray armed forces captured the town of Desse after overwhelming several divisions of the Ethiopian forces, Amhara militia and Fano Vigilante group. Tigray's military command announced that while Tigray's forces will at all costs avoid conflict inside highly populated areas, Kombolcha residents should stay vigilant, remain indoors, and protect public and private properties. Earlier this week, President Debretsion ገብረሚካኤል also called on residents of Desse and Kombolcha to remain indoors and protect public and private properties as Tigray's forces draw closer. Eider's Comprehensive Specialized Referral Hospital is the only in Tigray that can provide dialysis to patients suffering from kidney failure. Now, 4 months into all-encompassing siege that has blocked all essential services coming into Tigray, including essential medical supplies, the hospital has been forced to discontinue treatments to patients suffering from kidney failure, posing danger to 32 patients in need of the dialysis. Abraha Gauratinsay has more on this.
Eider Comprehensive Specialized Hospital had been the only health facility in Tigray, providing dialysis to patients suffering from kidney failure. Now, after 4 months under siege that has also blocked the entry of basic medical supplies, the hospital has been forced to discontinue treatment to patients suffering from kidney failure, putting the lives of 32 kidney patients in danger. Mulu Abu is a kidney patient who had been receiving treatment at Eider Hospital for more than 3 years.
My name is Mulu Abuy. It has been 3 years since I started dialysis at this hospital. The service has discontinued on Monday due to lack of medical supplies. I am here today to ask if the service has been restarted, but no hope. I am suffering a lot, especially at night. It is difficult to breathe because of my lungs fill up with liquid.
Mulu says he has been receiving dialysis once a week since June, when the Ethiopian government started to block medical supplies coming into Tigray. Now, Mulu says the service has been completely discontinued.
I used to get dialysis service twice a week, although the standard in our country is 3 times in a week. But it lowered down to once a week since June 28, as no medical equipment was coming into Tigray. I don't have any option for treatment now. I am just waiting to die. No hope. All of us, our fate is days. There are other patients who are too weak to come and check if the service has been restarted.
He says the Ethiopian government has sentenced him and other Tigrayans death by blocking aid and medical supplies coming into Tigray.
Medical supplies would need to reach Tigray in next week to save my life and others like me. The world has to do something. I'm weak. I cannot engage in combat. This is being done deliberately to eliminate all Tigrinya speakers.
Health workers at the hospital expressed the pain that comes along with losing patients due to lack of medical supplies.
I am
Tu'um Medhin. I am the coordinator of the dialysis center here and have worked at Eider Hospital for more than 10 years. We used to receive 120 patients every year on average. But currently, we only have 32 patients because we couldn't admit more due to shortage of central catheter. Now, we have completely shut down the center since Monday. 1 patient has already died. The fate of the remaining 31 will not be any different if things do not improve soon. It's heartbreaking.
Nurse Mulu staff dialysis unit.
My name is Mulalim Haile Selassie. I am a nurse at a dialysis ward at Eider Hospital. It hurts a lot to lose patients you have cared for more than 5 years because of the shortage of medical equipment. We're very close to each other. We have developed a close relationship with our patients. We have become family. Not being able to help them has been unbearable.
Muse Tesfai, Chief Executive and Business Development Director at Eider Hospital, says it's not just the kidney ward that has been affected by the siege, and says much of the hospital has had to significantly reduce services due to lack of medical equipment.
We couldn't run the center or provide care to our patients because of lack of the required medicines. It's because the siege that's currently happening in Tigray, there is no in and out. Nothing comes or leaves Tigray, and this is one part of the hospital. The hospital is completely lowering its capacity to basically a small healthcare facility. It's a tertiary hospital, but now because of the lack of medicines and medical equipment we need, it's just like a very small health center.
The 4-month-long siege on Tigray is further straining an already collapsed health system that has had over 80% of its infrastructure destroyed, putting the lives of hundreds of thousands of Tigrayans in danger.
Tedros Adhanom is running unopposed for the Director General of the World Health Organization. He was a sole candidate proposed by 28 countries, including France and Germany, one of the highest donors to WHO. Reporter Win Takidana has more on this.
On Friday, the World Health Organization announced that Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus was running unopposed for the top job at the World Health Organization, looking certain to serve a second term as its Director General. The deadline for the nomination process had ended in September. The 56-year-old Ethiopian is set to serve the second term as the WHO chief after being proposed as a sole candidate by 28 countries, including France and Germany. Biologist, public health researcher, and Director General of the World Health Organization since 2017, Tedros is the first African to play this role and was endorsed by the African Union. Tedros Adhanom has served during the Ebola outbreak, but leaves no doubt in mind that COVID-19 pandemic will be the most memorable in the Director General's tenure. Tedros has identified universal health coverage as his top priority at WHO. He campaigned on the issue and reiterated his focus in his first speech as the Director General and throughout the 72nd session of the UN General Assembly. Before serving as a Director General, he held two high-level positions in the government of Ethiopia: Minister of Health from 2005 to 2012 and Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2012 to 2016. Tedros was included in Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People of 2020. Dr. Tedros has on multiple occasions voiced his concerns regarding atrocities being committed in Tigray, including denial of basic services and the blockade of humanitarian aid, including medical supplies. The Ethiopian government has so far chosen not to endorse his candidacy and has repeatedly been scrutinized by the Ethiopian government. Ethiopian General Birhanu Jula has been quoted as saying Dr. Tedros Adhanom, a former TPLF member, is unfit for the position. Dr. Tedros Adhanom is one of the longest-serving heads for the Tigray Bureau of Health, overseeing the development of health extension program that was later duplicated in developing countries across the world.
Ethiopia's broadcasting authorities has ordered local radios and TV broadcasters to stop sharing foreign media reports. This is just one of the latest attempts by the Ethiopian government to control narratives and public discourse, one of the most desperate decisions being complete shutdown of communications in Tigray. Reporter Abel Zagawa has more on this.
According to a report by VOA, a letter issued on Friday by Ethiopian Broadcasting Authority to Ahad Radio and TV said that the station can no longer air news produced on Ethiopia by foreign outlets. The report also stated that EBA had suspended the license of media outlets that it said were legitimating Tigray's government. In July, the media regulatory body had suspended the license of Addis Standard, claiming the outlets had posed a risk to Ethiopia's national security. In the same month, the Ethiopian government had arrested 20 journalists. The attack on Tigray-based media outlets by Ethiopian authorities had started over a year ago following the death of Hachalu Hundessa, when Ethiopian authorities took Tigray Television and Dimtz Weyane as well as Oromo Media Network off air. Ethiopian forces later killed Tigray Television journalist Dawit Kebede and Dimtz Weyane's CEO Abebe Skedom, destroyed and looted property belonging to media houses in Tigray, and arrested several fixers working for international media outlets, forcing journalists and media professionals to seek asylum in other countries.
Tigray's Inter-Religious Council called on Ethiopia's religious leaders to apologize for their role in justifying and normalizing war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in Tigray. The council criticized some of the Ethiopian leaders of using hate speech and said religious forums and festivities had been used to normalize abuses committed in Tigray. The Religious Council also said that the religious dogma had been instrumental in the genocide committed in Tigray. Reporter Daras Brahana has more on this.
Tigray Inter-Religious Council serves as a forum for religious leaders in Tigray and says it had on many occasions in the past year requested that Ethiopian religious leaders work to intervene for peace, a call it says had fallen on deaf ears.
Ethiopian Inter-Religious Council apologized openly to Tigray Inter-Religious Council and to Tigray people. We can continue being part of such organization because we are suffering, our people are suffering.
The council criticized Ethiopia's religious leaders for irresponsible action throughout the war and remaining mute as churches and mosques were looted and destroyed, priests, nuns, and sheikhs killed and abused.
From the very beginning, we asked the Inter-Religious Council of Ethiopia, for they are residing in Addis Ababa, in the capital of Ethiopia and in the center of international communities, to intervene and to stop the planned invasion, the unjust war declared on Tigray and Tigrayans. Inter-Religious Council of Tigray make it very clear that the war is unjust, because the war to be called just, it has to meet 5 principles. None of the 5 was met. The worst thing is to invite foreign force to eliminate Tigrayans. And since then, the Ethiopian Inter-Religious Council seems standing in the side of the invaders. It seems to us they are never worried nor saddened by the ethnic cleansing. Religious leaders, Christian and Muslim, the elderly, the children, youth, elderly, have been massacred. Their bodies were prohibited from funeral. Some killed and thrown off the cliff. Some killed and burned by fire. Some tied up, killed, and thrown to the river. And the world have seen such atrocity, for those bodies were discovered in the Sudan. The invading force and their leaders have condemned Tigray and Tagaru to be disappeared from the face of this earth.
ዕላምኡ ዝረስዐ ትካል ምስቱ ምዃኑ ብዕሊ ንህዝቢ ትግራይ
Our responsibility as religious leaders is to call for peace, but our Ethiopian counterparts have instead chosen to play a part in justifying the war and the crimes committed on the people of Tigray. We therefore ask that the religious leaders officially apologize for this role. We ask that Ethiopian leaders play their part to bring parties to the negotiation table. We are also ready to hold discussion with Ethiopian Religious Council to solve our difference through dialogue, but in the event that the Ethiopian Council fails to meet our demands, we will be forced to reconsider our membership.
The leaders said that Ethiopia's religious leaders should fail to condone the atrocities committed in Tigray, that Tigray's council would have to reconsider its membership in Ethiopia's religious council.
To address what happened to our people last 10 days. May God rest in peace those who passed away. May God reach them and heal those who are wounded, and may console those who are traumatized by the loss of their dearest and nearest ones by the air strike.
The religious leaders also expressed grief of residents killed due to airstrikes in Mekelle this past week and wished strength to families and friends of the victims.
Mekelle alone bombarded 10 times by airstrike. Adwa and near the refugee camp in the west did the same.
Alliance of Civil Societies in Tigray, a coalition of over 50 local civil society organizations operating in Tigray, released a statement earlier this week appealing to the United Nations and other members of the international community to take immediate and pragmatic action to avert an already dire humanitarian crisis in Tigray. Reporter Betelem Ayala has more on this.
Local civil society organizations under the umbrella of Alliance of Civil Society Organizations of Tigray appealed to the United Nations and other members of the international community to take immediate actions to end aerial bombardments on the capital city of Tigray and its outskirts. The letter noted that airstrikes are being carried out in densely populated areas such as markets, residential areas, and other public places, leading to the loss of civilian lives, including children and women. In addition, Ethiopian forces' reckless decision to use a UN humanitarian flight as a shield during an airstrike on the capital has led to the suspension of humanitarian flights into Tigray. The alliance recognized and appreciated the UN and other members of international community statement expressing their concern and the continued condemnation of the Ethiopian government, but said this has not brought a change in course and asked the international community to play its part to avert the looming humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray by taking pragmatic action, including an end to aerial bombardments that have targeted civilians and public infrastructures, a peaceful resolution to the conflict, and restoration of humanitarian aid routes.
For more on this, we had a brief stay with leadership of ACSO to discuss their letter.
The Alliance of Civil Society of Tigray is established in 2007 and has about 60 member organizations. They are non-profit and non-partisan organizations, and it has the mandate to capacitate, advocate, and build the capacity of its members. Beyond, it also bridges the relationship between the government and the civil societies in order to work smoothly with the government.
Those programs are related to 3 general thematic issues. The first one is on advocacy issues. Secondly, they also work on capacity building programs, which is aimed at capacitating the capacity of technical and administrative capacity of its members. And it has also the mandate of networking and coordinating the programs and projects of all its members. They have been active in providing services related to various development activities like education, health, and other social services. Besides, they are also active in different advocacy works like human security and human safety, and advocating the rights of citizens. When the conflict comes, they have shifted, most of them are shifted to humanitarian, addressing the humanitarian crisis that is existing at this time.
Humanitarian aid also was very limited because of the blockade. Even before, in the first, while the federal government was here, there was blockade still by the Amhara Fano. Regarding after the return back of the Tigray government, there is a complete siege, and what they did is the banks could not work. Then the other point is power problem was very difficult, and we could not, communicate. There is no internet, there is no telecommunication, and currently there is also bombardment problem, and this traumatize all our people.
Civil society organizations, under our capacity, we could have done a lot in addressing the problems of rape in Tigray, the dehumanizing man-made hunger, and also other catastrophic situations that should have been addressed. In due course of trying to engage civil societies to address all these problems, there have been lots of challenges that can be classified into three major phases. The first one, to our understanding, is the blockade, total blockade of infrastructural services like banking service, which civil society organizations could have made use of to extract our resources, especially cash, to render the service we are expected to. And the second one is the communication issues, internet and telecommunications. And the other one is the infrastructural problems related to power supply.
The international community work very good work in some areas, especially in the news. We hear they express their concerns very nicely. They explained it, but practically they could not move into the ground, and our people could not, get a solution for that. Still, they are in problem. Our people are in problem.
It's been 4 months since the Ethiopian government has imposed an all-encompassing siege on the people of Tigray, disconnecting all the basic services and blocked aid and medical supplies. Our reporters were in Adwa to observe the effects of the siege and the people there. Winta Kidana has more.
Adwa town is one of the areas that have been heavily destroyed and looted by the allied forces of the central government of Ethiopia, Eritrean troops and the Amhara militias. And now the siege by the central government, which blocked the entry of all essential items, is making life difficult for the residents of Adwa town, like any parts of Tigray.
The town of Adwa is literally destroyed. There is nothing left. Big infrastructures, which were able to create job opportunities for many, have been destroyed. Many had a permanent job to support their families. But as the factories are looted and destroyed by the Eritrean and Ethiopian troops, employees are left with no means of income.
A mother is raped along with her daughter in this town. Women were not only raped but also tortured and forced to be servants of the troops. Their belongings were looted as well, so they are facing a severe difficulties to lead their lives at the moment.
Especially the Eritrean troops have turned the town into ashes. There is no any door that has not been broken, nor is any house that is not looted. After trading the residents of the town to stay at home for a week, they looted the properties of the town.
After suffering a brutal war for more than 8 months, the residents of Adwa town are now exposed to a man-made famine. Pregnant women, elders, children, and most of the residents of the town are suffering from the consequences of the war and the systematic siege of the central government. Women are dying of labor as they couldn't find a proper help in the health facilities. Children are dying of malnutrition. As the central government is continuously blocking humanitarian assistance such as food and medicines, pregnant women and children are dying in front of our eyes.
Women are unable to breastfeed their infants because they themselves are suffering from malnutrition. As they are helpless of the situation, the only thing they can do is crying. We are also observing people with swollen legs due to starvation.
People in different parts of Tigray are also similarly suffering from the man-made famine like the residents of Adwa are suffering. Though the UN is still unable to come up with a solution to end the suffering of the Tigray people, its reports say more than 5.5 million people in Tigray are found in a famine-like condition. But the situation on the ground is beyond the famine-like condition mantra. Many people are dying of man-made famine every single day.
Facebook has been one of the most prominent battlefields, as the war in the past year has been about narratives as much as anything else. Now, CNN is saying that Facebook hasn't done enough to curb hate speech or respond to messages that incite violence. Reporter Beteli Mayela has more on this.
CNN released a report earlier this week emphasizing that Facebook, the largest social media platform in the world with 2.89 billion subscribers across the world and over 6 million in Ethiopia, had failed to curb hate speech and violent messages spread on its platform. CNN reported that Facebook employees repeatedly failed to stop the spread of violent posts in at-risk countries like Ethiopia. CNN reported that Facebook had been used by militias to seed calls for violence, and specially identified Fano, a youth vigilante group in Amhara region, as having used the platform to incite violence against Tigrayans, and linked Fano to killings, human rights abuses, looting and rape occurring since the start of the conflict in Tigray. The head of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Samantha Power, expressed her concern about the dehumanizing rhetoric that she said Ethiopian leaders were invoking amid the conflict in Tigray. She said that virtual speech used by the Prime Minister and other officials was shared on social media. Abiy's language was also condemned by the UN Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Alice Warmi-Daryut, saying that hate speech with its propagation through social media contributes to further ethnic tension in the country. A whistleblower named Hugen said that Facebook had handled places like Ethiopia very badly, saying that she feared more lives could be lost due to Facebook's underfunding of its tracking and response mechanism for hate speech. CNN also stated that Facebook's rise in popularity came at the moment of rapid political and social changes in Ethiopia, which helped to boost the platform's growth. Facebook's spokesperson told CNN that the company has been actively working on Ethiopia and that it had partnered with two non-profit organizations in Ethiopia, the FB Fact Check and the PESA Check, to prevent messages that incite violence being spread on its platform. Though an employee of FB Fact Check, Amanuel Nogut, said that the tool doesn't accurately identify misinformation. Days before election in June, Facebook said it had removed a network of fake accounts linked to individuals associated with Ethiopia's Information Network Security Agency, a government agency previously headed by Abiy Ahmed. In response to Facebook's action, the Ethiopian government accused Facebook of blocking users that post the truth. The Ethiopian government had announced that it is developing its own social media platform to replace social media platforms and messaging apps owned by the tech giant.
And with that, we're going to wrap up our news for the hour. I'm Maren from Tigray. Thank you for tuning into Tigray TV.